Hi, it's time to get this Rodel ready for the season. This is what it looks like. This is the touring model that is made by the Rodel company. It's been sitting around all summer long. The snow is here, so now it's time to get it ready. First of all, of course, make sure you attach it firmly to the table. Alright, the next thing you should do is make sure to get rid of the old year's wax, because it's going to be dirty sitting around all summer long. So get some mineral spirits, soak a rag, and start taking it off. Alright, next what you want to do is inspect the runners to see if there's been any sort of oxidation, any sort of rust that's happened. If it's a plain steel, well, I should explain. These are actually the runners. The steel is sort of like a shoe. So these are commonly called steels. This is called a Kufen. It's German. This is made in a German-speaking country. So what you're going to do is look around and see if you got any rust marks, and if you do, get a Scotch-Brite pad and just start taking off the rust. If you've soaked the rag pretty good with the mineral spirits, before you start to remove the rust, get a thin film of that mineral spirits on the steel. And that serves as a lubricant to help with removal of the rust. And it works pretty good. And in fact, it's a lot faster to do it that way than it is just to do it dry. After you're through with the Scotch-Brite pad and everything looks to be nice and sparkly and shiny again, no rust, go over it once again with that mineral spirit soaked rag, and look what you get. See all that black right there? You want to remove all of that. If you leave it on there, when we start to get down to the operations of waxing, parts of it may still be there. You don't want dirty wax. Okay, the next operation is putting little striations into the steel. Some people call it structure, some people call it rilling. Same thing. The object is to allow water to escape. What you're trying to do is prevent suction developing underneath the steels while you're running, and it'll literally suck. You'll get a vacuum developing, and it depends on the water content of the snow. So what you're going to be doing is, over time and with experience, you'll determine what kind of size of striations you're going to need. You'll do that with aluminum oxide sandpaper. No other sandpaper works as good as aluminum oxide. And it'll be from anywhere in coarseness from 40 all the way up to, some people say, 200. Around here in mountains close to the Tetons, the snow is so dry most of the time that I generally use 100 grit. So it just depends on how much water you have in the snow usually. So that's what I'm going to do here with a sanding block. You just go from always front to back on something like this. Whenever you make a motion that is going to dig into the steel somewhere, you always want to make sure it's front to back. Now that's an 80 to get things started. There. Now I'll take it down to 100. We are, after all, trying to get the most efficient glide we can out of the steels. So that's why your motions should always be front to back. You don't want to do one of these scrubbing routines. You don't want to do this. The reason why is because you can develop little itty-bitty, literally bumps in the road on the steel that can slow you down. If you're going to have any sort of bump at all, you want to start up here at the front of the leading edge where it's barely touching the snow, and then have a nice smooth line all the way back down. That'll work much better. Next step, you're going to check the edges for burrs. Don't want any burrs. And they'll take, just using the sled, we'll put little burrs on the sides. You don't, there, you can feel just a little lip sticking out right there. You don't want any burrs on the side of the steels because that's just going to slow you down. It's a ragged edge that'll just get in the way. So, I like to use a double cut file because it cuts so much faster. You can also use a mill bastard type file. That works okay too. But you just go along there, once again, in the direction of travel, and take off the burrs. Another little gizmo you can use is an edge sharpener. There are all sorts of different kinds of these. They're handy. They're not really necessary to do the job, but if you happen to have one sitting around, it's a handy tool because it'll sit right on the steel bottom, and you know for sure that this edge right here is going to be 90 degrees to the flat surface. Just run it along like that, and that nothing could be easier. Alright, once you do with that, you're finished with that. You should have by now determined what the wax of the day will be. And it's just like cross-country skiing. It's the temperature of the snow, not the temperature of the air. So once you determine what that is, then you find the wax that is appropriate, and you're going to use a glide wax. For today, it looks like it's going to be a green, so that's what I'm going to use. Now these are glide waxes. It's the same thing you would use on an alpine ski, snowboard, cross-country skate ski, same wax. And if you're familiar with the waxing procedure, same rough idea. So what you're going to do is melt it on with an iron. Now, just a plain old iron will work, but obviously you don't want to use a steam iron with holes all over it, and you can figure out the problem with that. You don't want it so hot that you cause excessive amounts of smoke to develop. In other words, you're vaporizing the wax and you're also changing the structure of the wax. You're going to get some smoking, but you want to make sure that you don't get too much. You have to walk that fine line, fine balance. So the other way you can get around this is just buy one of the irons that are especially made for this that cross-country skiers use. But those are terribly expensive. If you already have one, or if you don't mind the expense, jump right in. I hadn't had this around, so I use this all the time. So all you're going to do, yeah, that's what I thought. See, here's a problem. For illustrative purposes, I was going to try to do it at an angle like this. You don't want to do that. You saw the little beads come off. So what you're going to have to do is what I ordinarily do, and that is to use my handy fancy adjustment. This makes it somewhat more flat. There we are. See, the more flat surface up here. You shouldn't have such a difficult time getting waxes to stick. Alright, here we go. There we are. There we are. That's doing what I wanted it to do. Alright, now, for illustrative purposes, I'm shortcutting this bit. But the idea is to affect a bond of the wax with the steels. And the only way you're going to do that is to raise the temperature of the steels. There we go. You see how it's starting to smear? There, you notice to finish and make sure that I run front to back just like before. Alright. We'll let this guy cool. Now, obviously, worthy of note is you don't want to do this in a part of the house where somebody else might be concerned about a mess, because believe me, you are going to make a mess when you do this. It's just the nature of wax. It's still a little warm, but it's close enough. All you need to do then is grab a little scraper like this. This is just a regular basic cross-country ski scraper. You don't want to use steel on something like this. You want plastic. And once again, from front to back, you can see the mess that's developing here. You just want to peel off the excess. Now, you're not taking off all the wax unless you didn't get a good bond. Alright, we went to the effort to put rules into this, or structure into the steels, but we just buried them in the wax. That's not going to do us any good. So what we have to do next, what has to be done next, is to expose that structure and still leave the wax. So you can use a little nylon brush like this, like so, to take it off. They're relatively inexpensive. And once again, from front to back. Now, to me, that's a slow way of doing it. I've been at this long enough to where I started developing a big collection of equipment. So I have a bronze brush. This is more like for snowboarding and skis, but it looks fast. You can see what looks like a polish begin to develop. It will become shiny in here. And as soon as you stop seeing irregularities on the steel, you're ready to go. If you were going to transport it for any distance, what I really suggest is when you buy these things, when you buy a Rodel, they'll come with protection for the runners. I strongly suggest, if you want to preserve the surface that you worked on, it's just like a pair of race skis. You want to protect that wax job. So, you just slip on these covers. And that'll help protect your hard-won effort there. Now that's all there is to it. Go out and have some fast sliding.